What's going on, everybody? My name is Sir Medieval, and welcome to the very first video of the guide series for none other than Kingdom Under Fire 2. Sorry I haven't made one sooner. I've been having so much fun with the game. It's been getting kind of addicting, actually, making sure that my dailies are done. There's so many to do. You pretty much have all day to do them. Essentially, you have to, you keep up on top of that, and it's pretty much in a fun way. You can do it in different ways if you don't want to focus on one specific aspect like PvE. Hopefully soon we'll be doing 3v3s a lot, but right now you are able to get a lot of content out of the 1v1s in terms of PvP. But anyway, today we're going to be talking about the troops. So for today's topic, it's mainly going to be things like the Troops Visionstones and the Region Visionstones, and we're also going to be talking about how to equip the weapons, armor, and accessories for the units. Now, to start you off with this, as you can see, the troops themselves had different grades. So there's gray grade, there's blue grade, and there's purple. Grades are probably the easiest to get, of course, but you don't actually see them too often. Now you can get, of course, troops from quests. You can get them from the tutorials, which is the main one I'm talking about there too. Missions, they can drop them sometimes, things like that. The raids included in the invasions. There's plenty of different ways to get troops, and in terms of how much we have access to right now, aside from the boxes that you get very early on when you first buy the game, the troops that you would have gotten in the packages, those boxes that have a random chance to give you a certain level of troops, you have the chance to get exotic based ones, and I would classify exotic based ones as like maybe the steam tanks, maybe the bomber wings, maybe the eagles, things like that. Everybody's starting units are probably going to be different from each other, and in terms of like what grade they are, that'll probably be different too. Now, the way that this affects your units is that whenever you have a troop that has a higher grade, they're going to have a higher base stat. So what that means is that level 30 purple troop that has higher stats than like a level 30 blue troop that has high stats or max stat equipment is going to have much more baseline stats. So the purple will be way better than the blue. And the way that you kind of measure that out, so like for purple, if you are like using a 1-star purple, because it's different to upgrade a purple than it is a blue, most of the time if you have like a 4 or 5-star blue, it's usually better to use that before getting the purple one on your bar, because a 1-star purple would be worse than like a 4 or 5-star blue kind of thing, if that makes sense. So just to kind of give it a baseline, there's a couple different, of course, a couple different troops that we have access to. We have the human race, we have the elven race, we have the orcs, and the dark elves. And the dark elves only have one faction, but what you see here is just a list of the factions, and they all have different troops with different grades inside of them. Now, the way that the troops essentially work is almost every faction has like at least one infantry unit kind of thing. But the factions or the races, they have different specialties, basically. So for the humans, for instance, you'll find that they have like really good spearmen, really good infantry, really beefy ones too. Like the iron armor heavy infantry are probably some of the best in the game. Their red main spears, I believe, those are some really good spears from what I've heard, probably one of the best. But of course, like the elven archers might be better than the human archers kind of thing. But the humans also have the muskets. And on top of that, they also have the steam tanks. They also have the bomber wings, things like that. So you can mix it up, because even if you choose, like, let's say the Revolution Coalition for your faction at level 10, you can still use any troops available to all the players. So same thing with Protection. If you go for like Protection Alliance and you want to use Revolution's troops, you can do that too. And for the elves, you have things like some really good mages. They specialize in really good magic, alongside bowmen, of course. For them too, their mages, they actually specialize in like lightning magic and ice magic. They do only have single troops for their mages, though. That's one thing to consider. So it's a little bit different than the royal mages, but there's a good reason for this, and you learn about them in the tutorials. But they are extremely powerful. You will absolutely love them if you get one of these mages. Very good stuff to have. And then they also have, of course, like we said before, have the eagles. You want to get your Lord of the Rings on, this is the guys to do it with. For the orcs, they have some marauding bands. They specialize in, I would say, like they have different kind of exotic units. The axe throwers, for instance. The scorpions are probably the highlight, but the ogres are pretty cool too, because they can bypass the units, walk right through them and get to the other side. The arsonists are also flamethrower units that you can use. Probably really good for burning down front lines. One of the ones that I'm planning on getting at some point, for sure. And the ogres, they have some really cool special abilities that they have. And since they're able to bypass units, they can get to like a ranged troop very quickly if they need to assault them. and they need to sneak past the infantry. Spears, though, they cannot get through. The spears will block them, so that's one thing to consider. And also, ogres will get smacked down by bosses. They're not really that good in PvE situations because the bosses will just destroy the ogres, and then also infantry, if they're just going up against a bunch of them, they'll get destroyed that way too. Now for the scorpions, this is probably one of the best troops to use because it's a hulking, big beast of metal. And what this thing does is it's essentially is really good as like a baseline tank. Some of the invasions, you actually need these scorpions to really succeed with them, unless you've got some really good troops. Otherwise, these scorpions make things so much easier. They can hold an entire front line at bay, is how good they are. Especially if you have heals going on them the entire time, they're really nice. And the way that they work is they have special abilities, like you can see in this video, where they're able to just completely bomb a front line. They have abilities like that. They can do the body slam when they're high enough level. They can kind of do the pinching nippers, which is where they kind of like swipe left and right as they're moving through a unit. They're really sweet. So that's kind of what the ogres are about, or I'm sorry, the orcs as well are about. They also have different type of cavalry in terms of the heavy flagmen. One of the ones that I'm planning on getting, who have a lot of baseline DPS. They're really good. But the human cav are actually really scary as well, so I wouldn't count them out at all when it comes to that. And then for the dark elves, they're basically like, I would say, the most based on assassin-based troops, like the executioners, for instance. These are like dual-wielding marauders, and they are really powerful. I've heard that actually, let me see if I can find the ability here. Yeah, this is one of them. But let's say you get a 5-star, you can cast Immersion, increase their physical attack by 55%, and their critical rate equivalent to a target level. Now, the orcs, one other troop that's really good from them that I love to use is the slaughterers. These guys absolutely decimate infantry lines. They also decimate buildings too. They're really good for that. Make sure to keep that in mind, buildings. But I would say these guys are probably one of the most powerful units I've seen thus far when it comes to like infantry versus infantry or something like that. But the executioners, I would consider, might be even scarier. I haven't come across these ones a lot, but essentially when you cast something like that, immersion, and since there's different ways to execute bonuses, like, you know, troops might get more damage from behind a unit. If it's a cav unit and it's flanking and it does a charge, it's probably going to do bonus damage, stuff like that. So these ones I would not count out. And they also have the assassins too. And they also have, similar to the other ones, they have really good damage increases, the increased physical attack by 20% kind of thing for 20 seconds. Really nice. So I bet these ones could eventually, when you level them up high enough, get really good damage, maybe even close to or surpass the slaughterers. And the elite punishers is the spear unit I'm planning on going for. I can't wait. Probably not as good as the human ones, but they look amazing. Now to continue on, let's talk about the troops themselves and how the progression works. So essentially, when you start out with your first troop, you're trying to level it up from level 1, whether it's a blue-grade troop, a purple-grade troop, or a gray-grade troop. There is pretty much one straightforward way to do it, and there's one additional way that you can do on top of it. You essentially get experience for these units by just bringing them into battles. Since you only have a maximum of 3 units that you can bring, it's usually best to bring those into lower level missions or subjugations, which are the RTS mode missions that you can do. When it comes to those ones, you're not able to control your hero unit. You can only control your troops, and we'll be going into those a little bit later. But I would say that bringing them into missions is of course going to be the best way, but also on top of that, you are able to train your troops up. Now, you can do this by expending what's called barracks experience, as you can see on this menu. The way that you get that is just by default, you know, doing the content in game, and then you'll start racking up that barracks XP. And then what you do is essentially anytime, like let's say if I have a level 21 fight brawler and I want to get it to 22, it will take the remaining experience that you need, so 4,151, and subtract it from the barracks XP. Early on, you'll start to get a lot of books that are called like troop XP books, and you can also purchase these with cubics. The endgame currency that is used to be in previous iterations was the like pay to win currency that they've changed heavily for our version to make sure that that's not a thing. So now these are only earnable in game, and you can actually buy the troop XP books with these cubics currency. And when you do that, you get a ton of barracks XP that you can use towards your troops to train them up. So if you get like a fresh blue unit, fresh purple unit, you can do that. However, once you start getting them close to level 20, that's when you start needing a lot more barracks XP. So that's one thing to keep in mind, and make sure not to waste it too much, because you might end up with a unit that you can't really use, or you might end up with a unit that has a better grade when it comes down to it. Now, the next menu is the rank up menu, which is where you can use the what's called vision stones. So essentially, there's two types of vision stones. There is the region and there is the troop-based vision stones. The region vision stones essentially is the factions themselves. So what I mean by that is, if you look at the different factions here, each one of these factions has a vision stone for it. So if you have a troop that comes from one of these factions, you have to get vision stones for that faction to level that troop up. For instance, I have a brawler from Rough Teeth. Even though most of my orc-based troops come from Needle Eye and Bulging Horn, brawler, if I click view details, will tell me that I need to get 50 vision stones for the region of Rough Tooth. See how that works? And then I also need to get the troop vision stones for the brawler, but that's because it's a purple troop, but we'll go into that in a second. So let's say I want to go for Rose Rain. Then I click on the Storm Rider. It'll say I need the region vision stones for Rose Rain. Now, the way that you can get these is many different ways, but you can get them from missions, and most missions will show you exactly which vision stones they will drop inside of them. You can also get them from this vendor right here, which is the Troop Coin Exchange. The location for this man is in the guild district of Accolade, probably the easiest way to find him, but he is in other cities too. But you can find him in the guild district right here, southeast of the barracks manager Bones. Talk to this guy, and as you can see, you can get a lot of vision stones just off of this dude, but you can see that they're quality blue. Now, the interesting part about this is that not only do you get a lot of troop coins just by doing the content, but each grade has a different vision stone for it. So aside from the grays, they use the blue ones too, or yeah, I would assume those are the blue grade ones. But the actual purple grade units use a different type of vision stone. So like the wizard, for instance, that's blue grade, he would use the blue ones. And then for the troop ones, it's just the blue. For the region one, it's just the regular. But the purple is going to use the regular and the purple vision stones. Different way entirely to get these. So you also, once you start ranking them up past level 3, you have to use what's called these insignias. You can also get these from like the troop coin vendor, and also you can get them from like crafting, for instance. You can get the materials to craft these from missions. And as you can see, it starts to get really expensive once you get like past the 3rd grade when it comes to a purple troop. Now, what you want to consider here is that for the purple ones, right now, we don't have a lot of ways of getting the purple vision stones. And I do believe personally that it's supposed to be that way because they're trying to gate us from content. If you think about it, most of us got to max level in about 2 to 3 days maximum. So we really reached the end game really fast and we started grinding our butts off. So right now we're at a kind of stalemate when it comes to purple troops because although we're starting to figure out the invasions quite a bit, you know, it's still RNG to get the vision stones from them and like the troops to drop. But in the future, and I'll tell you this now because there is a unit or a troop NPC that I discovered that isn't in the game yet, but it's right next to the troop skill instructor Boris. And also I'll go over the troop skills in just a second, but they are called the Daily Heroic Troop Exchange and the Daily Rare Troop Exchange. We'll exchange your rare troop once a day. We'll exchange your heroic troop once a day. So you know what that means, right? So that means that there is content, of course, and of course they explain that, you know, in the future raids like the 16-man and whatnot, we'll have more chances to get these kinds of troops. But there is content that's not in yet that will allow us to get these higher grade troops much easier. So they're gating us out so we don't get to the max level stuff right away. That way, you know, we don't get bored right away kind of thing. You know, to kind of space it out, and it also allows them to make new content while we're waiting for that content to come out kind of thing, while we're waiting for the, you know, current content to come out. A lot of games do it. So that's why you won't see a lot of vision stones for purple units going around. Now there is another way, of course, too, but it's only for certain units. You can do the PvP from the Coliseum of Honor, and for that one, that's the 1v1s or the 3v3s. If you click on this dual swords at the top here, you can see that you can queue up for the 1v1s, or you can queue up for the 3v3 modes, and you can get what's called the Coliseum tokens to then talk to the vendors over here. If I can find them, hold on. Where are you? That's for equipment right there. You can also get some purple equipment. Decent grade, but not the best. And then you can, so yeah, this one is like for just the serial arsonist, which is an orc flamethrower unit, one of the ones that I definitely want. But it costs 200 of these coins to get them, and then 30 for the actual vision stones. Now, the way that most people are doing it right now is through the crack shard missions. So at level 30, you unlock the dimensional rifts, which essentially is where you have a choice. Well, you actually don't get to choose, but you have a choice of going into these missions, and you have to go with other people, of course. It's probably preferred to. And then you can get a random selection of a mission, and you get different tiers that you can. So it goes in stages. It starts at stage 1. It chooses a random mission for you. You get thrown into it. You beat it. You get to stage 2, another random mission, and so on. And then they give different rewards, like they give more and more cracked shards. And then you can go over here to use these cracked shards in the city of Accolade at the plaza to talk to this vendor, to enter. And you can also talk to this vendor right here to exchange those for like Iron Wall, Heavy Cav, Halberdiers, and Royal Wizards. Or if you want a bigger selection, Hammerbone right here has the biggest selection of all of these. So you can choose Crusaders, Riflemen, Wizards, Spearmen, Archers, Infantry, Heavy Infantry, and you can only get about 100 of these a day. So they do have a daily cap, so it's best to try to get as many as you possibly can. But I will be honest with you, the cracked missions do take a hell of a lot of time, so it's not something you'll probably be doing all day, every day kind of thing. Now, to finish it off, to talk about the actual skills of the troops themselves, well, let's go over to the vendor actually. Hold on. Okay, much better. So to talk about the skilled troops, the skills of the troops, as you rank these troops up like we talked about before, they get new abilities that they can use. But you have to go to these vendors and actually learn the skills. So as you can see, just to kind of show you how it looks before you level them up, when it's level 1, this is all you have access to, just this one, and then possibly one passive if you learn it. But most of the time it's on rank 2 that you have to get to before you can learn it. Once you rank up to a 2-star, that's when it starts to look a little bit different, like this. Then you get access to this right here, which is going to be another one that you can use a passive, and that goes on this bar down here. And then this is basically one that you can unlock randomly. So this, like the special bonuses that each unit has differs. This is the special trait, basically, is what I would call it. So each unit has a different bonus against another specific type of unit. You'll notice that most of the orc ones have bonuses against elves, and then most of the like dark elf ones, for instance, might have giant monster, or humans, or elf too. Same thing with this one, elf hunter. There's different types for different types of troops. These ones might have the dark demonic creature hunter, which of course these ones could be the Inklablosians that it's talking about. You'll see those quite a bit during the game. But the giant monsters would be stuff like the ogres, and I believe they would classify them as the minotaurs as well. Things like that. So if it looks more beast-like, I think it would probably be more of a giant monster if it's big. And if it's more like a dark demonic thing, then it might fit into that category instead. And then these skills, they're not just passives that you're unlocking, but you're also unlocking activatables. So like this is using this is a use upgraded bullet skill, where it increases the effects of their physical attack, and it does reduce their range, however, too. Or for the slaughterers, this is the difference between a level 1 and a rank 4. So the rank 4 is going to have 2 actives and 3 different passives, well, including the special bonus one that they get. The Temper Tantrum is basically a troop passive that once he gets to 50% or less health, they get a lot of physical attack, basically, for 10 seconds. So for this one, what we can do, actually it will cast it on us, it looks like. So not them, it's not them themselves, but it looks like they'll cast it on us instead. Could be the troop too, but we'll have to see how that kind of works out. That'll take some testing. And different troops have different kinds of skills. Like the armor worshippers have the ability to taunt units. They have a taunting cry. So anytime that you're looking at what units you want to go for, or especially when you're first starting the game with your package and you want to learn about what troops to choose, press H to open up this troop menu right here, and then look at all these troops and see what skills they can unlock. One cool thing too, you can level the troops up all the way to max, and I recommend doing this as much as possibly can where you're trying to see if you can compare troops. And you can take a look at what kind of skills they'll have at max. You can take it what kind of stats they'll have at max, which is very important, because this is the kind of thing that'll tell you about how these guys will have less health actually than the fighter unit from Bulging Horn. Actually, no, it's in Nidalee. Yep, there we go. So like these guys, so the human infantry had about 930,000 health or so, but they have there's differences. There's key differences. Like they'll have, these guys might have less armor or worse skills kind of thing, but they'll have more health, about 1 million or so. So that kind of thing is really good for kind of comparing the troops before you get them, just to see which ones work best for you. But essentially that's pretty much all there is about the troops. Overall, it's just going to take practice makes perfect when it comes to this game, but it's all about learning how to do the best option for your army, like finding out which troops you like the most, getting the right vision stones, getting the right ranks on these units, things like that is going to really help you in the long run. So make sure to keep track of all this and try to the best of your ability, upgrade them in a proper manner, and you'll be just fine. Also, don't discount the tutorial missions, because that's going to tell you exactly how to play these characters or play with these units. It'll give you tips on what you can do with them. You won't ever find out about the frontline mechanic, which I'll save as a surprise for you because it's pretty sweet, but watch out for it. And there's also different ones, like how the eagles function in battle and things of that nature. I'll let you play those out for yourself, especially the wizard-based one. And if you ever need to rerun these, they're in the main city of Accolade right at this location. But anyway, folks, that's going to be all for now. Hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully you guys get some good times out of what's to come. And I hope that this helped you a little bit. I'll be bringing some more out, but this is probably going to be the biggest one so far. Let's go ahead and get to it. Thanks so much for watching.